Hello, I'm Maria Hall Brown, and this is LA Currents. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office is the largest local district attorney's office in the United States, and today we are joined by the district attorney. So nice to have you
Hello,
here.
Maria.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, thank you.
Good.
What do you consider to be the responsibilities that are part of your job as being the district attorney here in Los Angeles?
Well, you know, there are many, but I would say that the largest part of my work is obviously ensuring that we work with other partners, both in law enforcement, but the community, public health officials, to make sure that we enhance the security and the public health of our community. In doing so, we have a tremendous responsibility to make sure that victims of crimes are being attended to, that we provide trauma-informed care. But we also have a responsibility to the accused. You know, there's a reality, especially in our communities, that over 80% of the people that are accused today will be victims or have been victims in the past. In fact, if you go to your prisons or you go to our jails, when you're talking about women, over 85% of the women that are accused of a crime have themselves been a victim of the crime. Men is usually over 80%. So it's understanding that you have to provide a holistic approach to our work, because if you don't, you continue to create victims in the future. We, as a country, have one of the highest recidivism rates of any industrialized nation in the world, sometimes hovering as high as 70%. And recidivism rate really is a failure rate. That means that these are cases where there is a system intervention and the intervention doesn't work. And that is one of the reasons why I'm pushing so aggressively to start bringing science and data into the way that we do our work to really inform our practices and move away from the things that haven't worked in the past, that have continued to create insecurity in our community. And then on top of all that, we in this nation also face a reckoning time when it comes with the issue of racism. The reality is that public institutions and the criminal legal system is very much part of that, has seen over and over the evidence of racism, systemic racism in our practices, on our work, and it is impossible for us as a democracy to continue to do business as we always have and not address this issue that has increasingly become more apparent. And by the way, when I say increasingly become more apparent, it's been here. Right. But I think the last year, the murder of George Floyd and others have really brought to bear what probably people in the African American community have known for their entire life. And I believe that part of my job is not only acknowledging that reality, but addressing it so that we start moving in a different direction.
The prison system, as you have said before, is not working. But how then does the district attorney's office, when it comes to prosecuting criminal cases, have any impact, with the exception of keeping people out of the prison system? How do you have impact on the prison system?
Well, there are multiple ways that we do, right? I mean, one of the things, and I often tell people, I wish if lawyers not only had to swear their allegiance to the Constitution, but we also had to do like medical doctors and take an oath and do no harm, right? So one of the first things that we have to do when we're addressing a case is we have to analyze what would be the best intervention for that case. We have on the one extreme, right, we have very dangerous people, right? That have to be incapacitated, and that in our system means they have to be put in jails and prisons because they are dangerous at that moment. The fact that they're dangerous at the moment in time doesn't mean that they will be dangerous forever. Some people may, and other people won't, right? So you have to entertain that redemption and rehabilitation are a component of our work. So when you're creating that intervention, which will lead to somebody being incarcerated, you have to try to project out what kind of opportunities are you going to provide the prison system to have the capacity to provide for rehabilitation so this person may be reintegrated in our community. Another fact that is often not discussed is about 95% of the people that we send to prison are coming back out. But if we're overstacking people in our prison system, then we take away the capacity from our correctional system to be able to provide the rehabilitative opportunities that a good system should have. So part of the work is addressing that. The other part is on the other end of the spectrum, right? So we go from the very dangerous to the people that are not dangerous, right? Is what is the right intervention for those people? Do we have mental health issues? Do we have substance dependence? Is there houselessness? Are there other issues on board that actually putting somebody in a concrete box is going to make them worse, right? Are there other interventions? And then you have people in the middle, right, that are neither very dangerous but are not very safe, and we have to be very surgical about the way that we do our work. So while clearly running a prison system is not my job is to make sure that the people that we put there, that we put them in such a condition that the prison system can do their job, and that we avoid putting people in that system that shouldn't go there, because history tells us they're going to actually do worse if they're put in that setting.
You yourself were a former policeman, you were here in Los Angeles, no less. So how do you feel about working with the police, and do you consider yourself an ally to the police? Because I know that sometimes it feels as if there's a bit of a conflict there somewhat.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, as the prosecutor, you should not be an ally of the police. You are a partner, and there's a difference between alliances and partnerships. There are lanes where we're going to work together because we need one another, and I consider myself a partner, and the perfect example is when I'm talking about the community violence reduction program, or when I'm talking about working in this with the alternatives to incarceration in the STEM police stations. But we're also the the gatekeepers of the system, and part of being the gatekeeper is ensuring that not only police but public officials are playing by the rules, and when they're not, that they're being held accountable. And that is a central component of what I get elected to do and what the role of the district attorney's office is. So I think often people feel like you are in a team, and you and the police are on the same team against the world, and that is a dangerous approach. And frankly, that mentality has brought us to what we are today, where in many cases we have lost the legitimacy in front of so many communities. And frankly, that's the reason why I got elected, because too many people felt that my predecessor was in the same team as the police, and that was a mistake. There was a community concern that during these times where we have seen increases in hate crimes, that removing hate crime enhancements and enhancements to protect other vulnerable victims was sending the wrong message. And I had some conversations with some of these community activists. Some of them, quite frankly, were strong supporters of mine, others were not. And I came to the conclusion during those conversations, and I actually said that publicly, I said, we will bring back the enhancements in hate crimes and vulnerable victims crime for the time being until we begin to work on better solutions. But I also said, look, if hate crime enhancements worked, why is it that hate crimes have been on the increase in the last 4 or 5 years while the enhancements were in place? Right. The reason why hate crimes are going up, even with enhancements, is for two reasons. Number one, enhancements clearly do not work in terms of reducing crime, but we have seen an increase in hate crimes because we have leaders in this country that very openly have stoked fears and have fed the whole concept of hate. And when you have leaders that are stoking the fears and give people a license to be hateful, you're going to have hate. And enhancements and the criminal justice system, by the way, are not going to fix any of that. We need to rewire the way that we deal with our community and the messaging that leaders put out. We have a role in the criminal justice system to hold people accountable that cross the line.
It's been really fascinating talking to you. I do wish we had a lot more time. Thank you so much.
Okay, Maria, thank you.
And that's a wrap on this LA Current.